It's SNHell, a look back at Saturday Night Live. And here are your hosts, Keith and Matt.
Saturday Night Live, Season 4, Episode 15, starring Margot Kidder, originally aired on March 17th, 1979. And welcome to SNHell. My name is Keith. With me, as always, my good buddy Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Keith.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, my friend.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Joining us tonight, our good buddy. Been with us a lot this season, and hopefully will continue on into the next few seasons. It's Kevin. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Keith. Hello, Matt. Thank you for having me again, as always.
Yes.
Always a pleasure with us, too.
So I'm fighting a bit of a cold tonight. You might not hear as much from me as usual, but I'll see what I can do as we plow through this episode, hosted by Margot Kidder. What, gentlemen, do you know of Margot Kidder?
Outside of Superman, I believe she was in the Amityville. Oh, my God.
Amityville, yeah.
Yeah, she was in that movie with that beautiful smoldering man.
The Elder Brolin.
Those are the only two things I know her from. I know she went crazy at some point.
Mostly the same. I grew up on horror movies, so I knew Margot Kidder as Mrs. Lutz significantly better than I knew her as Lois Lane. I didn't even see Superman until I was like an adult.
You're kidding.
No jokes. At some point I saw like one of the sequels, I don't know, and just like some stuff on TV here and there.
The thought that you know Dean Cain as Superman before you know Christopher Reeve is a mind-boggling thought to me right now.
Well, I wouldn't say, I am in touch with the cultural zeitgeist.
Yes,
I knew
absolutely.
that Christopher Reeve was Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't not. It was all over the magazines and the television, and it was a phenomenon. I just never sat down and watched the movie.
So Margot Kidder, Yellowknife born. She's one of us. Cut her teeth on the CBC before finding some fame in the U.S. She appeared on a lot of TV shows, both sides of the border, Banachek being the one that jumped out for me, and then did some movies. There was one called A Quackster Fortune Has a Cousin in the Bronx, which co-starred Gene Wilder. Her breakout role was playing one half of conjoined twins in Brian De Palma's Sisters. Led to a role in Robert Redford's Great Waldo Pepper, The Missouri Breaks with Jack Nicholson, and 92 in the Shade with Peter Fonda, I believe. All of this certainly leads up to her most famous role, Lois Lane in Superman, the movie directed by Richard Donner. And then, of course, Amityville Horror with James Brolin. Other bits, she was quite the activist. Environmental, and then later mental health. She did suffer from bipolar, which was at times misdiagnosed and other times left untreated. Talented and an interesting lady. Proud to call her a Canadian, I am.
I think it speaks to her talent and star power that even though, her mental health struggles probably impacted her career, certainly, probably invisibly so at first, but, I'm sure they were there. But my God, did she ever shine bright when she shone?
Yeah, absolutely. And the famous Manic episode, it was actually kind of triggered by, she had been working on a book for 3 years, and the data got corrupted on the hard drive. And she flew all the way to L.A. to get it fixed at some specialist, and they couldn't fix it. So bipolar or not, I think, 3 years of working on something to be suddenly lost could trigger anyone, I think, to just completely lose it.
Oh, 100%. I've had hard drives destroy themselves on me. Now I feel bad that I said she went crazy at the beginning of the episode.
But that's in jest. And I'm not like, I know what you mean. It's part of kind of how we handle things. So this is also St. Patrick's Day, and very aptly we have the Chieftains with us, Irish folk group. So we'll talk about the Chieftains when we get there. Anything you want to get off your chests before we jump right in?
At several points throughout the show, I thought that certain things that the cast members said would make excellent band names, and I will call them out as we go.
Excellent. Thank you. So we get one of our, what the hell are they called? Our bumpers, I guess, at the beginning, saying Little Women and Big Basketball Players will not be seen tonight. And this is a reference to a Little Women television series. There was one that aired in October of 78, very popular, and it was greenlit for February. So this is just off the popularity of that series. And we go to the cold open, and we're in a pub where we can hear the Irish Rovers Unicorn song. Bill Murray returns as radio DJ Dick Lanky, and he's at Doyle's Tavern in Chicago. People are gathered around in their St. Patrick's Day garb to await the return of late Chicago Mayor Richard Daley. And this is a throwback to a sketch from last year as well. It was a bar. There was nobody waiting around, but Belushi did come in as recently deceased Mayor Richard Daley. Bill Murray is playing the radio DJ, and he's doing a remote there. He takes a call from Pam Korinsky, played by Gilda Radner, who wants to ask the mayor how he would handle the heavy snow that they've been having. Bill then reads a list of questions that other folks have sent for the dead mayor, including what's it like to be dead. Dan Aykroyd as bartender Bob Gallagher thinks that Mayor Daley will indeed return that night. He seemed like a pretty friendly guy and probably won't mind listeners' questions. Dan then recaps last year's sketch. As Bill waits for calls to come in, he gives random facts. Jane then calls in as a prank caller, pretending to be a mayoral candidate. At 10:30, we hear angelic music and a puff of smoke, much like in the other sketch. Belushi then enters, but this time he's not playing Mayor Daley, he's playing Jimmy Hoffa. He says the mayor is stuck in purgatory, but does have something to say. And that something is live from New York at Saturday night. This was interesting, as it's a pastiche of two sketches. We had Dick Lanky, who was on the Ricky Nelson episode, and last year's St. Patrick's Day episode kind of combined together. This had a few quick, funny bits. It definitely wasn't great. Didn't have a lot of energy to it. And I mean, the Jimmy Hoffa jokes, I was writing, my God, they're still making Hoffa jokes. But, you know, when I really think of it, even today, you know, almost 50 years later, there are still people making Hoffa jokes.
Yeah, kind of a tepid opening, really. I got more of a kick out of Little Women big basketball players. Like, I had to pause it for a moment there because I actually was I enjoyed that a lot more than I care to admit. The sketch is just kind of There wasn't a lot to it. I think Belushi coming in as Jimmy Hoffa was a nice little change around. It's just a means to an end to get to the opening of the show.
I'm pretty much on the same page as you guys. I did, Keith. I think you said it best when you said the energy was low. The idea of the late mayor reappearing on St. Patrick's Day in a pub as a ghost. That's funny. I did laugh at that. And Bill's wig is awful and hilarious. And I did laugh at that too. But the call-in jokes weren't very funny, and it just kind of petered out. It was just kind of there. So I did like the idea, but a little didn't really come through in the execution all the way.
Do you remember the last year one? Do you remember last year's, like Belushi came in with a turkey and all that stuff?
No, I don't.
No, okay. Yeah, it's a little ways back, but that was a fun sketch that kind of captured everything you needed to capture, I think. So we're now off to the introduction. Pretty much standard introduction. We are getting to see tonight Franken and Davis and Father Guido Sarducci. Both announced. Were you excited by either of those? I was intrigued by Franken and Davis, and always glad to see Father Guido coming.
Franken and Davis, it's always good to have them on the show. I absolutely love watching their little bits.
I like Franken and Davis. They always do some interesting stuff. I don't always enjoy what they do, but it's always weird, at least, or interesting to watch in some capacity. Father Guido Sarducci, as we may recall, the first time I saw him, I was not really into it, but I've really come around on it ever since. He's had a few hits in a row, so I'm down.
This is speaking as someone who at one point wanted to be a priest, right, Matt?
Yeah, grade 4. Then we went around the class, and Mrs. McLean was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And everybody was giving basketball star, astronaut, fucking grade 4 answers. And I was like, I want to be a priest. And everybody started laughing, and I was like, well, I don't know what's so funny. We're going to need priests when we're older. Somebody's got to do it. And the teacher was all proud of me. She's like, good for you. Yes, we will need priests.
Yeah.
And anyway, of course, I grew out of that.
It is the monologue. Margot Kidder comes down to home base. It has a large shamrock painted on it, and I like it. She has a green ribbon in her hair, and she starts talking about the fact it's St. Patrick's Day and how busy New York is. And the camera slowly pans down till it gets to her feet. She is unaware of this, and she keeps talking until Gilda comes in and explains that most of the crew is Irish. It's St. Patrick's Day, and everyone seems to be kind of drunk, including the cameraman who just kind of dropped his camera. Gilda then escorts Kidder to the booth to speak with director Dave Wilson. As they walk through the audience, Jim Downey stops to ask if it's true you only use 10% of your brain. She does answer, but Gilda chastises Downey for asking such a dumb question and even asking a question to the host. They then arrive at the booth where the crew is celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Turns out that they've been drinking for a week, and director Dave Wilson is so drunk he passes out. Kidder, in a bit of a panic, asks to see Lorne, who is being interviewed in the back of the booth, talking about a possible political career. Gilda and Margot ask Lorne if he knows that Wilson is drunk. Lorne says he does, and the medics are on their way. The two women return to Wilson, where he's being revived by some medics. Gilda then introduces him to Margot because he still thinks it's the Gary Busey episode. The medics then get Wilson to stand up and say, roll the tape. This was not bad. I really enjoy the recurring bit that director Dave Wilson is a useless drunk. I have no idea what the point of Jim Downey's asking the question was. At this early stage, they are still really doing a good job setting Lorne up as this sort of aloof and non-present boss. This early in the show, it's funny because this continues on in a lot of sketches. Few chuckles here, nothing crazy significant for me, but this might be the best bit of energy we get out of anyone tonight, save one sketch. So, sort of at the end of the show, in retrospect, I enjoyed this a lot more than I probably did when I was watching it.
Where to begin with this? Margot comes in. She looks lovely, splendid, has a lot of energy coming up on stage, and was like, okay, we're going to get a nice little monologue, because the one thing, as I say on all these episodes, I like the monologue because it sets up the feeling the host is going to have throughout the rest of the show. And it does that through this monologue or this opening bit, but not in the way that I kind of expected going for the rest of the show. But I thought kind of the making the crew as a character was kind of interesting. The question, why was that there? Like, I don't know. It doesn't really lead in with everything else. It kind of just seemed super pointless. And it's always good to see Lorne, such a wonderful, crafty bastard he is. It's just sitting in the background having a conversation. I got a couple of genuine laughs from it, but I feel like there could have been a bit more or a bit less.
So it's St. Patrick's Day. Of course, everybody's drunk. Huge pop for Margot Kidder, which I enjoyed. I hear a Canadian accent when she speaks. I'm sure of it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I love when SNL does backstage stuff, like when they, especially, during the monologue. It's a bit of a tradition now. Like they'll take the host backstage or they'll run behind the scenes. And I just love when they do it. I love the gimmick. Kind of sounds weird to say, but I like seeing Gilda as an assertive adult. It was a fun change of character because she's so often such a bizarre character. I thought the Lorne being aloof was really funny. I thought the crew being smashed and Wilson being out of it was really funny. When they threw water on his face and he said, "Live from New York, it's Saturday night." I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, I liked it way more than you guys did. I thought it was really fun.
Nice. I'm glad. Navy Adventure. This is a pre-taped recruitment ad for the Navy. Instead of showing the sort of fun and cool things that they would show in this type of ad, we're seeing the more mundane things that take place on ship. We see painting and peeling potatoes and mopping and laundry and cleaning toilets. I really enjoyed this, actually, in a weird way. I am ex-Navy. I spent a little bit of time on ship, and this is more the day you'll get than the sort of, loading missiles and all the stuff that they show on the recruitment videos. I did watch this back a few times to sort of see the history. I don't know without that if I would have enjoyed this so much, but it was pretty good, and I thought Dan Aykroyd's voiceover was quite good as well.
I thought the Navy ad was funny. I mean, it's kind of like it was. I like the voiceover and the with Dan too, when they were just going through the montage of all the drudgery. I thought it was amusing and it was a fun idea.
It was funny. It was short. All of the little check boxes for me to enjoy anything on SNL nowadays. But no, I really enjoyed just kind of the stock footage montage of horrible garbage that they have to do. It made me really wanted to join the Navy. Yeah, a lot of cleaning and scraping. It just didn't look like a lot of fun. Dan Aykroyd made it seem like it would be a lot of fun. But yeah, no, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
We're now off to Fred Garvin, male prostitute. Margot plays Mrs. Potter, a bank executive on a business trip in the Midwest. She's in bed in a hotel room when a knock comes to the door. She answers it to see Dan Aykroyd as Fred Garvin. He confirms her identity and asks if he can come in. She wonders why, and he explains when a male executive comes to town, various corporations send a woman up to the room. But as she is a gal, he is there because he's Fred Garvin, male prostitute. When he says his own name, this includes a sly look to the camera with a chyron. She has some reservations about the whole situation, but he assures her that he is concerned about professionalism, hygiene, discretion, and animal gratification. And everything has been taken care of by the fine folks over at Midwest Feed and Grain. He has a work order that specifies that he's to roger her roundly until 6:15 in the morning. She thinks she might rather sleep instead, but he reminds her that she's with a fully qualified male strumpet. He asks her what she has to lose. She thinks it over in a cheesy voiceover and says she's not going to see her boyfriend for a while, and he is a professional, so she might just be into it. Before beginning their session, Fred strikes some seductive poses on the bed, which doesn't seem to help his case very much. He then tells her to hop into bed and assures her that he works with the jacket and glasses, and then he cracks a couple of dad jokes about a frog in a blender and shows her his backseat driver's license, and this to him is considered foreplay. She gets completely turned off when she notices his various trusses, which he hopes she'll help him remove, and he warns her not to touch the rupture. A knock comes to the door, and it's Slick, Fred's boss, played by Garrett, who enters in appropriate pimp attire, and he's there just to help Fred with his trusses. Margot tells Slick that things were so good with Fred that she just can't go on anymore, and Fred's free to leave. Garrett is proud because he has only 8 girls and Fred. She thanks Fred for giving her a night she'll never forget. Aykroyd was absolutely brilliant here. There is so much about this sketch that might not stand up today's scrutiny, but this was to me so bizarre and so cartoony that Aykroyd's Fred was, so inappropriate as a gentleman of the evening to be taken seriously as any sort of social commentary. Got a great reaction from the audience. Margot Kidder could have really been anyone, but she was fine, and she did what she could. Nice little walk-on bit from Garrett at the end. Got a lot of good laughs. I really think this was Aykroyd probably at his best. This is way up there for excellence in Dan Aykroyd characters.
I relate to this, so I'm in the sketch. I don't normally have relations unless I'm wearing my smoking jacket and glasses as well. You have to have a sense of nobility when I lay in bed. I actually thought he was quite funny. The character, every time he looks at the camera and then the words come on the screen, I died. I thought it was quite funny. He has such a way to take like a bizarre, ridiculous character idea and make it so charming and disarming, and it just draws you right into the whole premise, regardless of whoever else is in the scene or if the scene is not doing too well. Dan Aykroyd does a fantastic job with whatever he is given. I thought Margot was quite good as well. She's very cute, very, naive at times, I think. So she wouldn't kind of rolled around with the punches. The dad jokes really got me as well. I was waiting for where is it going to get even weirder, and then here comes the trusses. Once Garrett comes in, it just seals the deal on a quite bizarre but very entertaining sketch.
Yep, I think I mostly agree with y'all. This was super funny. I also had very hearty out loud laughter when he would look into the camera and introduce himself. Holy shit, I thought it was hilarious. I barely recognized Dan at first when he came in. Between doing the voice and the glasses, I think because I was kind of shooting him from a distance too, I thought it was hilarious that he had a work order. That's fucking awesome that the prostitute had a work order. Terrific. As promised, this particular sketch had 2 things that the characters said that I am calling as future band names. Band name number 1, Symptoms of Arousal. What a great band name. Band name number 2, or perhaps this would be a better, you know what? Let me revise. The first album from Symptoms of Arousal is called Don't Touch the Rupture. Platinum. Print it. Also, I don't know if they said it in the sketch, but Keith said it, so I think partial credit. Various Trusses would also be a great band name. I would go with that. Nobody's going to let me in their band with these names, but
I don't know. I'd listen to Symptoms of Arousal. I think that'd be a good band name. I think that would.
Symptoms of Arousal. Yeah, it's like they do. I'm trying to imagine what kind of music they would play. I want to say doom metal love songs. This character, Fred Garvin, male prostitute, it's one of the characters that I remembered. I totally forgot. I was not expecting this, and so I really had that a good pop of a laugh when it came out. And then I realized, like it sort of like dawned on me that I knew this character existed in some back shelf of my mind.
Yeah, I'm glad Don't Touch the Rupture got dog-eared, because I put that one in bold, which usually means that one of the either Matt or one of the third chairs is going to talk about it.
Much like not touching the rupture, I don't want to talk about my ruptures. It's a very private thing for me.
We are now off to the Chieftains. It's an Irish traditional band formed in 1962. They slowly gained a following in the UK, which just kept getting bigger and bigger until they were really a worldwide phenomenon. Some of that's from appearing on the Barry Lyndon soundtrack. At the time of this appearance, a very short amount of time had passed between their breakthrough and this appearance. Their last album was called Chieftains 8. They sort of did the Led Zeppelin type of thing with the numbers. That came out in 78. I actually had the pleasure of meeting a couple of the Chieftains way back in the day. I did some sound work for a local music festival. I didn't know who they were until later, but they were very nice guys. They perform If I Had Maggie in the Woods. This is in front of a scenic backdrop of a farm setting with a well and the fog machine turned up to 10. Eastern Canada is filled with this type of music, and this is that type of music done extremely well, done expertly. You cannot really go too many places without hearing, people trying to be the Chieftains. Certainly not my favorite Irish band. There's a list probably 5 or 6 ahead of these guys, but I really enjoyed this, and it's very fitting for St. Patrick's Day for me. So I did like this a great deal. But it's not one of these things where this is not a great discovery for me, because half my friends' dads had these albums playing when I went to visit them.
Now, I'm a fan of this kind of music, obviously, coming from Eastern Canada. I want to say we might have had a Chieftains CD floating around the house at some point. I have no idea. But most likely, I probably heard the Chieftains in passing somewhere. I do like, Irish folk music. I have eclectic collection here at home, and I enjoyed the music. I think it was great. The backdrop, all that is beautiful, wonderful. And I know it's St. Patrick's Day. I know it's big in New York. I just feel like it doesn't really mesh well with the rest of the show. Like I know we have one other sketch that kind of like plays onto that, and then like the opening, but there's no other bits of St. Patrick's Day kind of floating around. There's no like motif or theme. This is not a great place for it. I could be the only one, as I cautiously look at Matt, being like, please agree with me. I'm just like, oh my God, why is it here? I enjoyed the music, enjoyed all that. I just feel like it's just such a weird choice for your late night comedy variety show.
I don't like the Chieftains. Okay. I do not like this kind of music even a little bit. And I thought this song was hokey, and it sounded just like the most cliche Irish jiggy music that you just hear in the background of some movie that I would dread watching. For the same reasons that Keith spoke of feeling a positive nostalgia, I feel a negative nostalgia, because I'm from Eastern Canada. I grew up with this music because it's around, because the uncles listen to it, because the grandparents listen to it. And you know what? I don't want anything to do with what my uncle likes and what my grandparents like. It's not cool. And the Chieftains really kind of, Chieftains and like the Irish Rovers, this kind of music, and I don't even know if they're the same kind of music, don't at me, but this is the kind of music that encapsulates, like when I hear it, I know I'm stuck with family. I know I'm not doing something cool. I know I want to be somewhere else. I want to be at the arcade. I want to be with my friends. Old lady music drives me up the wall. And having said all that, you want the Irish band on St. Patrick's Day. It's kind of like an unofficial holiday. I guess why you bring in the Chieftains. Credit where credit is due. I like when they do cool stuff for the bands, like individual sets and stuff like that. I think that's awesome. But I think the song is like the least cool thing I could possibly think of.
They are the Irish band at the time. I mean, that's the apex of what you're going to get if you want the Irish band for St. Patrick's Day. We're now going to St. Mickey's KOC, and this was written by Brian Doyle Murray. So we are at the St. Mickey's St. Patrick's Day sports banquet and dinner dance, complete with green beer. Grand Knight Frank Leary, played by Belushi, calls the meeting to order and calls up Sister Serena, played by Lorraine, who just gives a very literal blessing. Deputy Grand Knight Jack Niehauser, played by Aykroyd, is called up to read the minutes of the last meeting and to give a report. Instead, he notes that he's 1/4 Irish and makes a roast-style joke about Grand Knight Leary. He moves on to a raffle for a new Buick. Now, funds from this Buick will buy a Jeep with a snowplow that the nuns will be able to use to plow out the playground to keep it nice and clear, and the rest of the money will be given to the IRA to make sure that they kick England out of Ireland. After a big build-up saying someone will be driving home with a brand new Buick, the winner is revealed to be John C. Tate of Casper, Wyoming, who nobody knows, and he's obviously not there. And there's no phone number, so Jack Niehauser is asked to go track him down. Sister Serena is called up to explain why the boxing team is no good and did so poorly at the recent Mardi Gras Day boxing tournament. And then Garrett, as Lee Leslie Davis, is announced as the winner of the tournament, the boxing tournament. He is from a different church, which people are disappointed about, and he's presented a trophy. He then reads an Muhammad Ali-style brag that gets absolutely no reaction from the folks at the dinner. Frank then gives the award to the most sportsmanlike boxer to his son Jocko, played by Bill Murray. He says he wins the most sportsmanlike because he didn't have the chance to hit anybody. The guest of honor is Mary Margaret Muggy, who is an exchange teacher from Belfast, who says that when she thinks of Jocko, she thinks of a young man who was killed by a bomb that was paid for by a Boston dentist. She condemns all the fighting and the violence and say if people are going to take a side, it should be a side against poverty and a side against war, and to not side with the two major warring factions. Her passionate speech brings the crowd way, way down. Frank, returning to the podium, doesn't know where to go after this, so he calls out the girls from the kitchen, Gilda and Jane, and then they all start singing A Little Bit of Heaven, the traditional Irish song, and as the scene ends, all the quote-unquote Irishmen are muddling through the words, while Garrett gives a beautiful rendition of it, and he is the only one that knows all the words to it. This is the third St. Mickey's. I think it's probably the weakest installment of the three, but there was a lot of good in it. The characterizations in these are quite funny, and the dollar store decorations really made this one work for me, as with the first two. These St. Mickey's KOC segments are so painfully real that the humor is in the realism. Now, maybe it's just the subject matter, but as soon as Margot Kidder started speaking, I completely jumped to Sinead O'Connor and Bono. You know, what she was saying was absolutely true about the Troubles, but there's just something about not knowing your audience that makes this funny in a really twisted sort of way. Of course, with all the other ones, Jane and Gilda coming out as the shy women in the kitchen, reluctantly coming out for their bows, was really a highlight, as was Garrett being the only one to know the words. Sort of a takeoff from the last one where Elliot Gould's Jewish character was the only one that knew all the words to the one of the Christmas carols.
I really liked this. As you mentioned, the realism is painfully hilarious. Something I definitely want to point out is that we are, in fact, at the St. Patrick's Day sports banquet and dinner dance. It was hilarious when they said that. I just laughed. St. Patrick's Day sports banquet and dinner dance, kicking the English out of Ireland. That's funny. It's just so amusingly real. The spin when he was spinning the drum. I don't know what it was. I cracked up when Aykroyd was spinning that drum. And when he told the nun not to look, like the nun's gonna cheat. Don't look, sister. Hilarious. Just like so real. Speaking of so real, winning a raffle like this from afar should be banned. My mom and I had this conversation about a local raffle recently where somebody like from Ontario won one of these 50-50s or raffle type nonsense in Nova Scotia. And I was like, why do they even let them buy tickets? It just shouldn't be like that. I am vehemently opposed to this. It's like foreign investors buying up the housing. And anyway, there's a correlation there. That's all I'm saying. Garrett, when he was just kind of standing there, was really funny. The smile on his face when he was backing away and trying to get back to the chair was fucking awesome. There was a wide shot too, and Lorraine as the nun is sitting like in this dark, shadowy corner, like a feisty little cynical thing. I thought her character was awesome. I thought Margot Kidder really stood out with her weirdo character. Belushi not quite knowing what was next was, again, this is what makes it feel like a real meeting, when he's like, oh shit, what do I do now? And then they get the ladies out from the kitchen. So like the writing is so sharp, the acting is so sharp, and it's so real. Spaghetti dinner? Of course it's a spaghetti dinner. Dan tenting his hands and looking so serious too, like he's so deep in that character. Garrett singing was awesome. I thought this sketch was amazing.
It's very real. The spaghetti thing, the spaghetti dinner thing, actually like it awakened like core memories in my mind about having to like gather tickets for spaghetti dinners that we're having for various special events. It just was really weird and surreal to watch it, because I'm like, I've been in places like this before. I've been at dinners like this before, and it's just the weird, quiet banality of it all. It was just funny and absurd in a completely different way. I absolutely loved at the end when Garrett was the only one that knew the words to the song. I just died. I thought it was so funny. Beautifully weird, real, surreal sketch that at first I didn't think I was going to enjoy, and I had to rewatch it again just because there was just something about it I loved. Like my grandfather was a Knight of Columbus.
So this is the last of these. These kind of are forgotten in a lot of ways. But these really turned out to be three really fun slices of life that really bring back a ton of memories. And like I said, the night we watched the first one, the previous night, I had been at a meeting that was exactly like this. These are so much fun, and I'm really going to miss them, because I kind of started to like these guys.
They were too real for TV.
We are now at Weekend Update, and it begins with a picture of what looks like a car with dreadlocks, and Jane announces that it's a Rastafarian sedan. Some stories here. Jimmy Carter pledges to use his peacemaking skills to put the NBC schedule together properly. Nixon visits his grandchild in New York, and he's worried that being a national disgrace can skip a generation. Jane gives Bill her watch, saying that he left it at her house, but the Chieftains found it. Bill announces that there's a shortage of monkeys for scientific research. If there are any rhesus monkeys out there, they can send themselves to a rhesus roundup, and he gives a California address. Father Guido then comes out and talks about St. Patrick, and he clarifies that St. Patrick didn't actually chase the snakes from Ireland, but the snakes actually followed him like kind of a Pied Piper for snakes. And people don't realize it, but when they have to go long distances, snakes move very slowly. So St. Patrick had to walk very, very slowly. He then led all the snakes to the ocean, and he walked out in the ocean where all the snakes drowned. Guido says that St. Patrick was a good saint, but he's not a great saint like St. Joseph, who's the patron saint of Italy. St. Joseph was a great saint, but because his birthday is just after St. Patrick's, he really gets the shaft. He does mention that there were some American saints, and he mentions a Mother Seton. Most saints have to do 4 miracles, but Mother Seton only had to do 3. The Pope waived the 4th because she's an American and says it's all politics. There are some Italians out there who have done 40 to 60 miracles, but they can't get sainthood because there's just too many Italians in there. Guido also suggests that 2 of Mother Seton's miracles were actually just basic card tricks, and he thinks Kreskin will probably be the next saint. He then mentions that he has been promoted to Monsignor and will get the red stripe on his robe, which entitles him to get better veal at Italian restaurants. He then talks about having an itchy arm, not feeling too good because he recently got a tattoo. He awkwardly throws it back to Bill. We don't get his usual Arrivederci America. Bill then does a story in light of Einstein's 100th birthday. He sings happy birthday to a bust of Albert Einstein. Squeaky Fromm was charged with attacking a prisoner with a hammer. They say she got her hammer to do her job in the prison yard, which is assassinating weeds. Dan Aykroyd then reports on Lee Marvin's palimony suit, which then turns into our point-counterpoint of the week. Jane believes that a lack of a piece of paper does not prove the lack of a relationship. She refers to Dan as a miserable failure. Dan, beginning with Jane, you ignorant slut, which probably gets the biggest reaction of the night, then goes into a diatribe, probably the most vicious counterpoint we've seen yet. Jane supporting Lee Marvin's ex-partner is proof that when she's on her back, the meter is running. I thought this Weekend Update as a whole was pretty low on jokes. But these segments, Guido and the point counterpoint, very good. I thought Jane went really easy on Dan compared to how brutal he was to her. Overall, for me, Bill was a non-issue. Jane was good, even though the jokes blew. The segments was what saved this one and made it watchable.
I really enjoyed Guido Sarducci. I loved his line, "They can't let another Italian saint in because they're just full of them," which was quite funny. Even now, there's way too many Italian saints. Don't come at me. I'm just saying. He's not wrong. Dan Aykroyd just eviscerates Jane in point counterpoint. I actually had some pretty big laughs at point counterpoint. But outside of that, everything else is kind of meh. I did like the monkey joke, the little monkey bit. But that's because I like monkeys. But yeah, it was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay.
When this weekend update started, I really wanted it to be good. I've been enjoying myself this show, and quite frankly, I have not found Weekend Update here in season 4 to be on any kind of terrific run. It's fine, but more often than not, it's drudgery more than anything, and it's not like season 3 was drudgery. But it hasn't been always sharp this season. Anyway, I just wanted it to be good. Sometimes they go overboard with the network jokes. I thought that one was fine. I really laughed when Jane said the Chieftains found it. I thought that was hilarious. Did he say Small Cyst? Small Cyst is a good band name. Rhesus Roundup, another good band name. I really laughed when he was talking, when Father was saying, snakes on a long journey, they go slow. I was trying to just put it together in my head. I thought it was really funny. The whole Father Guido Sarducci was just awesome again. When he takes a second, he's like, "That's what he did," and he's tapping away on his cigarette. The idea of ranking saints, hilarious. The humor, I thought it kind of reminded me of Seinfeld humor there for a second when he was like, "Waved it. He just waved it, Jerry." The Pope just arbitrarily waving miracles, super funny. And I popped for Kreskin. These appearances have been amazingly consistent lately. It might come off on the surface as a little rambly, but I'm never bored listening to it. I always think it's super interesting storytelling. Band name alert, Nuke, Missouri. Jane said there's no old saying about being a miserable failure. I thought that was funny, but obviously much more tame than Dan, who had my line of the night: bagged out, dried up, slunk meat. Vile, oh my God. A Duran Duran knockoff band name, Fashionable Promiscuity.
Nice.
When you're on the backs, the meter is running. That was great. 2-bit tarts, bargain basement sluts. I thought this was the best Weekend Update in a while.
Oh, wow. How about Waved Miracle as a band name?
Waved Miracle's good. Yeah, I didn't catch that. That's a good one.
I think I might have heard that band name on the Christian rock radio that I put on in the car to...
We're now off to Lois Lane. So it's Margot Kidder reprising her role from the movie, and Bill is playing Superman here, and they're hosting a party. As she mixes the punch, the doorbell rings. Bill does this sort of jump fly to answer it, and it turns out to be Dan as the Flash, and his guest, Beverly, played by Gilda. Lois shows off her engagement ring, which Superman made for her out of a bag of charcoal. The doorbell rings, and it's Jane as Lana Lang. Superman sees her before she's let in because of his X-ray vision. Superman and the Flash leave, and the women talk about Superman and Lois living together. There's some really odd, loud clicking and clacking noise outside that's really distracting. The Hulk, played by Belushi, enters, and his girlfriend Cookie enters in a bunch of bandages and with crutches and stuff, and insists that they're going to need twin beds. The doorbell then rings, and a whole bunch of other superheroes come in. We've got Spider-Man, The Thing, and Spider-Woman come in. Garrett then follows them as Ant-Man. The Flash doesn't remember Ant-Man, and Ant-Man has to explain his powers, which is he can shrink himself down and still have the strength of a human. The Flash and Hulk then tease him, but Garrett doesn't get what's so funny about being an ant with the strength of a man. Hulk then goes to the bathroom and accidentally sits on the invisible girl. Lois then wonders why Clark Kent hasn't shown up. Superman says he's going to go out and get some ice, and he'll be right back, and he flies out the window. Beverly and Cookie then say that the superheroes are letting themselves go. Since they got rid of the bad guys, they have nothing to do but just sort of sit around and hang out. Bill then comes in as Clark, and Lois confides in him that Superman is very boring, and he'd never been with a woman before they started dating. She also confesses that she dated the Hulk for 6 months, and everyone but Superman knows this. Devastated, Clark leaves. We then see over by the bathroom that the Hulk has gone in and stunk up the bathroom. Superman then returns, but he has forgotten to change out of his Clark Kent clothes, exposing his secret, and he angrily kicks everyone out of the party. I was so disappointed in this sketch. I don't know what the hell happened. The sight in these guys in familiar costumes should have done half the work, but it just seems like the only thing that really worked for me was Belushi's Hulk, and the rest was very clunky and very painful and very overwritten. It was kind of also obvious that the studio audience didn't seem to be into this at all. I thought it was really low on jokes, super heavy on plot. We have the engagement, we have the party. We hear there's no more bad guys. Lois might be in love with Clark, but she isn't into Superman. She hooked up with a lot of them. Performances just seemed flat. Energy was down. Whatever them weird noises were coming from the backstage really, really threw them off there for a bit. You know, this show will revisit superheroes a lot over the run, and I really can't think of any other time offhand where it's this bad. What is cool, it is the first time that anyone ever played Ant-Man on screen, and I think Garrett eventually cameoed in the Ant-Man movie because of that.
Overly written and not funny must be a DC Universe movie. Oh! I'm going to ignore all of my comic book person-related issues with the sketch, because there's so many of them, but obviously I'll ignore all those. How would Hulk not know Ant-Man? They founded the Avengers. Anyway, stop. Where was Mr. Fantastic? Anyway, stop, Kevin. Stop. Okay.
I did see some comments on this, and there was more than one person that was like, why are DC and Marvel in the same room?
Like, are they Metropolis? Yeah. There's no Metropolis in the Marvel universe. It's New York, and all of those characters are New York superheroes. Anyways, Kevin, stop. I thought they could have done this sketch without any other superheroes. Belushi could have played just some character from the newsroom or something like that. Still would have got the same, like, obviously not with the super. He could have just been like a shitty lecherous guy. I don't know. Still could have got that character out there. There's so many little pointless spots. I think the dynamic between Margot Kidder and Bill Murray's Superman was quite good. I think they could have made a really good sketch just based on that alone. Could have been a hell of a lot shorter. There was so much great promise here that was just thrown away almost immediately when they just started introducing like random superhero. I didn't like this sketch, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think y'all are savage tonight. I was waiting for a Superman sketch, and I thought it was weird that it was kind of coming later in the show, and I was like, oh, maybe is it not going to be that good, or maybe it'll just be really off the wall. And I like Bill Murray kind of jumping around as Superman. I thought that was really funny. It actually, I don't know if it was me watching it or if they just explained it poorly at first, but it took me a second, because when the sketch started, I thought they were just like real people at a costume party dressed up as superheroes, because it was so like hokey that it took me a second to realize, no, wait, that's Superman. And I like that Superman is a little obnoxious. Jane was awesome as Lana. I thought she was such a good shit disturber. I really enjoyed watching her. I got a laugh when Belushi showed up in those torn purple pants, painted green as the Hulk. I thought that was great. Apparently, the Incredible Hulk fucks his wife into serious injury. So I think that's something you need to retain. Lorraine just looked hilarious. Missed opportunity. I want Jane to play a villain so bad. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and figure it out. The Thing costume made me laugh. Garrett, I thought, was a pretty bad Ant-Man. Also, let the record show that Hulk pissed on the Invisible Woman. The sketch was wild. I'm surprised you guys didn't like it. I thought it was a fun ride. Now, listen, I don't know any of this superhero stuff. I already mentioned that. I read Tales from the Crypt and Weird Science. So any like continuity issues or like cross-pollination or storyline idiosyncrasies, I don't get it. And you know what? I don't think in 1979 anybody really gets it, because this is not a good time. for superheroes. And I think, the fact that it'll be in the credits later that Marvel let them do this. So I know what you're saying. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Superman just came out and it was a huge blockbuster. But it's still not like it was today. Like, nobody gave a shit about the Green Lantern in 1979, I don't think.
Actually, I think at this point, Marvel was bleeding money all over the place, so they'll just let anybody use their characters if they just give them a little bit of money. I think that's how it was right up until the 90s, and then once they started making MCU and Disney bought them out, they're like, all right, you people can't touch anything we own anymore. Go away forever.
Yeah, no, this was so disjointed for me, Matt. It's funny. Like, I thought Belushi was great, but I also felt like a couple of them just gave up partway through the sketch and just stopped doing anything but giving their lines. We are now off to Franken and Davis. Al comes out in front of the curtain that has the Franken and Davis logo, and it's now surrounding a hammer and sickle. Al says the Franken and Davis show has rocketed him to stardom, and there's people out there who are trying to capitalize on the success of Franken and Davis. He then shows a box of Frankenberries and accuses the makers of stealing his name and his face and his rear end as the Frankenberry monster's head. He then throws to the show Pity Thy Neighbor. So Pity Thy Neighbor is a call-in show where you can call in and give something you don't need to someone who might need it. They bring in Augie Hartwell, and he is completely dirtied up, dressed in plastic, and he has a rope belt. Says he's been very sick. His urine is bright orange, and he's had a headache for a year. He says he lives in the bushes at Gramercy Park. Al then asks Dan, who is playing something of an announcer, how many calls have come in, and Dan is over by a phone bank, not unlike that of a telethon. Dan says that no phone calls have come in to give Augie anything. Al says there must be something out there that someone can give to Augie, an old soup can or even a stained mattress, but nobody calls in. Franken says that people just aren't calling in and Augie has to go. Augie then asks for something from Al, but Al says he can't give him anything or he won't have, or he'd have to give it to everyone, and then he would have nothing left. But Augie does get a copy of the Pity Thy Neighbor home game that he can play with his friends. Augie says he has no friends. Dan then throws Augie out of the studio. I thought this was terrible. The Frankenberries bit got a bit of a laugh, but the whole show was so miserable to me. It wasn't funny. I think they were going for the Augie is so sad it's funny and Franken is so mean it's funny, but neither worked for me. Any high points in here were just Dan's sort of oblivious announcer, just doing his job, not really considering what he's doing.
What a time we're having tonight, Keith. I thought this was pretty okay. Frankenberry, I thought that was funny. Pity Thy Neighbor is a great name for a show. Give something you don't need to someone who will take it. I thought that was pretty funny, too. Bright Orange Urine, band name alert. Anything to give to this poor wretched creature, just anything. I'm sure he'll take it. I thought Tom Davis was good in the character. That Al just kept calling him pathetic and shitting on him. I enjoyed it. I thought it was hilariously cruel. So I guess I was buying what they were selling and you were not. And I like that they treated it as it's its own show. Like they sign off at the end, like, good night, like the show's going to go off the air. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed Franken's cruelty and the patheticness of Tom. I just felt differently. Sooner or later, you'll be communist. I don't know if that was after the sketch or part of the sketch, but that's a band name.
Actually, I love that communist thing at the end of it. I thought that was quite funny. I laughed a lot at that. I don't know why. I actually like the sketch. I think the Communist Party thing at the end maybe kind of ties into the way the sketch was. I don't know. Maybe that's me looking for really garbage political commentary. I don't know. But I enjoyed the sketch. I thought it was really funny. I don't know what that says about me as a person, but it's just the way that the characters were playing off each other. I just thought how cartoonishly evil he was being without being evil at the same time was just really funny. And just Dan is just rolling with the punches, being like, I guess this might as well happen to me. This is what I'm doing tonight, is trying to get money for this poor, wretched human being. And when he comes out wearing the trash bag and he just looks like he sleeps under a bridge and eats children. That's what he looks like. He looks like a bridge troll. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was really funny. And the Frankenberry part at the beginning, loved that as well. There's not one of these little bits with the two of them that I have disliked ever, to be honest. I just enjoy them so much. It was a super wonderful breath of fresh air after that superhero sketch. So maybe that's why I enjoyed it as much as I did.
Let's go to Men's Problems. And this is a show where women talk about men's problems, and it's a counterpoint to Women's Problems, which was the male version of this. Jane hosts as Eat a Beverage, and she introduces the panel, which includes Margot, Gilda, and Lorraine. Their other co-host couldn't be there tonight as her husband was still eating dinner. Kidder thinks men are spoiled babies because their mothers gave them everything they could except sex. One of them hypothesized that men can't have kids, so they act like kids. Kidder says that men are never truly sure who their kid's father really is, which keeps them on edge. Gilda says she has 3 kids, her 2 actual kids and her husband Peter. They talk about size being a problem. Gilda says it can be a big problem or a small problem, saying she's not necessarily referring to her husband Peter. Lorraine's character thinks it's a problem when a guy falls in love with you and they're a creep. She wishes she had a dime for every charity case she's ever slept with, which leaves the rest of the panel kind of speechless for a second. They then talk about male comb-overs. Kidder says women can always do it and men can't. Women can even do it when they're dead. They then go to some questions. Ann Beats asks about lesbianism. They ignore the question, and Rosie Schuster asks a question as well about fooling around. And Gilda then admits to fooling around. And again, with her husband Peter out there watching, she has some explaining to do. This is another one that looked really promising. I really enjoyed the women's problems ones, but I thought this completely tanked. I don't know why that this didn't really do well with me, or it seemed to the audience. So it's fairly bawdy, and that usually at least gets the studio audience laughing. Gilda's character was the one. She had something of an arc, but it seemed a lot of that was just buried in other chatter. The style of the sketch where, women bashing men will pop up a lot over the years to mixed results, and this was definitely on the lower end of that. Kind of disappointing. I thought it was going to be as good as the male counterpoint. I wish it had the teeth that one did.
Lorraine saying if she had a dime for every charity case she slept with. Absolutely funny line. My favorite part of the whole sketch, Margot Kidder almost falling off her chair because she goes to lean her arm on the armrest and then fumbles a little bit. I don't know if she did that on purpose, but it kind of worked with her character's weird leg gait that she was dealing with there, like the man's spreading type. It's kind of a nothing burger of a sketch, really.
I thought the women looked incredible. They all had excellent costumes, very distinct styles and looks, and I also thought they all had very unique characters in the sketch, which stood out to me. Margot Kidder's character, talk about a proto Kate McKinnon character.
That's Kate exactly McKinnon what I thought. That is exactly what I thought.
This fucking character, yeah.
Posture and everything.
Posture, mannerisms that Kate McKinnon saw this sketch, I guarantee. But I thought the jokes were funny too. Size is a bigger little problem. If I had a dime for every charity case I slept with, oops. We can do it when we're dead. I thought that was a really funny line. Gilda continuing to bury her husband again and again. Something that I just thought made her stand out as a character, and Jane as the boss host. And when Jane signs off and Margot didn't get to her thing and she just starts yelling, I thought that was awesome. So that's a win for me.
We're now off to Morning Dew. The earliest release of this for the Chieftains I can find is on their 1977 live album. This is a really upbeat one. It's purely instrumental, which a lot of the Chieftain stuff is. It was it was short, to the point. It was fun. I'm not a music guy, but I can really sort of see when something takes a lot of skill, and it seems like this was a very skillfully impressive performance. So I enjoyed this one.
I liked it too. Great song, great musical performance. I thought it was great. But why is it here on this delightful comedy variety late night show?
I started when we were I looked at the clock. I was like, man, I almost made it. Barely 6 minutes left in the show. Are we going to have to do the Chieftains again? And of course we do. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm here. I'm watching the show. I'm gonna do this show right after. I'm not dismissive. I'm never dismissive. I always listen and I always try. I love music. I'm always interested in enjoying music. I'm not cantankerous on purpose about music. I don't like not enjoy it on purpose. But certainly when I don't like it, I can be passionate about it, and vice versa for the liking it. But anyway, I'm not like, ooh, the Chieftains suck, and not giving anything a chance. Okay. And to that point, I actually liked this song. He was killing it with that whistle. It was so much less hokey than the first song that I absolutely hated. This wasn't hokey. There was I really liked the violins or fiddles or whatever you want to call them. There was such a shrill atonality to them. I really like when music is shrill like that. It was just a really interesting composition. And you know what? It was way more complicated, and that's probably why I liked it so darn much more. You know, I listen to a lot of modern electronic music, and the whole thing is being like, you know, you start a little slow, you put layers upon layers upon layers, and then it's a big orgasmic cacophony. And they did that here too, with their own style of music, which was really cool to listen to, and I thought it was exciting. And I didn't see a microphone near anyone's mouth at all, which I thought was awesome. And the really climactic, like psycho-like ending, I thought was very cool. This was a really fun performance for me. I like.
We're now off to Mr. Bill, and we have Mr. Hands comes in to see Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill has left a note telling Mr. Hands that he's gone shopping. Mr. Bill is hiding in the closet with Spot. Bill has had enough, and he's starting to realize that he might not be safe around Mr. Hands anymore. Mr. Hands had asked Mr. Bill to go bowling, but instead Mr. Bill is going to hide in the closet with Spot all day and have lots of fun. Mr. Hands then comes back. He can't find Mr. Bill, so he decides to return the bowling ball to the closet. We then see Mr. Hands open the closet and drop the bowling ball, and Mr. Bill moans. I enjoyed this. There's an evolution here. I've said all along, poor Mr. Bill doesn't realize that Mr. Hands is the actual evil he fears. And it looks like there's been some character growth here, and he's starting to realize that it's not just Sluggo.
I'm very happy to be a resident Mr. Bill fan. I find fascinating, more fascinating to me than funny. Mr. Bill is catching on. I thought that was really interesting. Mr. Hand is the devil. He's evil. He's cruel. God is cruel. Mr. Hand is God, and God punishes us even when we're good. It's not about Sluggo. The mean things he does to this poor man's dog. John Wick or what? Once again, I enjoyed Mr. Bill and found it absolutely horrifying to the core.
I thought this was kind of a nice little turning on its head where he doesn't trust Mr. Hand. I also kind of like how you see Mr. Sluggo like kind of pointing to the closet, even though he doesn't really notice that he's pointing at the closet. I enjoy Mr. Bill. I enjoy Mr. Bill a lot.
We are at the Good Nights. Margot Kidder comes out wearing a Montreal Canadiens jersey. Incidentally, the Canadiens lost to the LA Kings 3-1 that night. It was a 3-point night for legendary LA King Marcel Dion. This is a very subdued Good Nights. Lorraine just kind of does the absolute minimum she has to do at a Good Night and wanders off. I guess it's not the absolute minimum because Dan didn't even go for the Good Nights tonight. So let's wrap this up and rate the show. The host, rating the host. Margot Kidder, to me, seemed low on energy. Now, I say this because she is a complete bundle of energy in the Superman and Amityville movies and some other things that I've seen her in. I don't know if she was out of her comfort zone or the process was rushed or the writing wasn't for her or if writing wasn't for anyone, but she kind of felt flat to me. Now, in her defense, a lot of the regulars also felt extremely flat. I don't know if they were bored. I don't know if the audience was crummy. I don't know what was quite going on, but this seemed like an episode that had a few peaks and a lot of valleys. She may not be like one of my top hosts, but she was definitely at par with the cast, for what good that did her tonight.
I thought Margot Kidder was awesome. I thought she was interesting in her roles. I was serious about what I said up front. When she shines bright. And I found her quite enchanting. I thought she disappeared into her roles. I thought her Kate McKinnon character was great. I loved her in the male prostitute sketch. I thought everything that they did give her to do. I mean, she did Lois Lane fine, but that was probably a weak point for me. She was great in the KOC sketch. I was into it tonight.
I thought she did a great job. I think maybe she's not used to doing like live TV comedy type shows, perhaps. Maybe that's it. She seemed comfortable, maybe just a little skittish at times, but I enjoyed her a lot in the prostitute sketch. I thought that was, I thought she was quite charming in that. Her Lois Lane was her Lois Lane. Again, that sketch had its issues. But yeah, no, I thought she was absolutely excellent.
So the music, I like Irish folk music. It's in me blood. I enjoy the Chieftains. There's a few acts I prefer, but if they were going to pull in, the Irish band of the time, they made the right choice. Because it was St. Patrick's Day, it made perfect sense to me, and I thought they did a great job. The second song, of course, I preferred to the first one. Thumbs up for me on the Chieftains.
I think they did an excellent job. It's clearly just me. I'm just saying tonally, it's weird.
Don't get me wrong, Kevin. I hear what you're saying when you're like, why are they here? It doesn't make sense. I spent like the first 2.75 seasons of this show the same thing every week. What the fuck is this doing on your hip comedy show? All the dad rock and the old white dudes with guitars in the first few seasons were punishing. Anyways, I can't really overstate my dislike the first Irish jig song. I won't try. I thought it was so annoying and so cliche. It's like the least cool thing I've ever heard. But I really think something has to be said, credit where credit is due, whatever you want to call it, that despite how much I hated that first song, I came away from that second song interested. And that's fucking cool. That I went from, oh my God, I will never listen to this again, to being like, wow, that was really accomplished and interesting. I would listen to more of something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. So, gentlemen, what was the worst sketch of the night?
I'm going to give the worst sketch of the night to the cold open. It's very rare that this would occur, but I really just didn't think it got the show off on the best foot. I liked the idea, but there was a weird energy to it. There was a poor execution. Like, it wasn't terrible. I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't think anything was really very terrible this show, other than that first song. It'd be pretty easy to blame it on Bill, but I don't know. It was like there was no jokes for it. And
very good, Kevin.
I'm going with the superhero sketch. I had a lot of issues with it. I think the reason I think it's the worst of the bunch because it could have had more. It just had the most promise with just terrible execution. So that is my worst sketch of the evening. I would agree with the cold open, but like there was some character in the cold open. There was some semblance of a plot. Like there was a beginning, middle, end. It was quick.
I agree completely. For the work that went into this, costume wise and set wise and all that stuff, probably should have been better than it was. It just felt to me like they had to do a Superman sketch and they put no real thought behind it, threw a whole bunch of spaghetti against the wall, and very little of it stuck for me. What was your best sketch of the night?
The Knights of Columbus sketch, for sure. It was fascinating and long, and it had like line after line of funny things. The St. Patrick's Day sports banquet and dinner dance. That's some good writing. Even things that weren't written as jokes were funny, like the spinning of the drum that had me cracking up when he was smacking it. Like, come on. I thought that was a standout sketch. I loved it.
I'm probably going to agree. The Knights of Columbus sketch. It made me feel feelings that I forgot about. Kind of like reliving old core memories, I guess. I'm not sure. But it was just the surrealist nature of it all. Just like coming back, watching it and kind of seeing things that I remember and recall. It was quite fun. Also, I really enjoyed Garrett's singing at the end. He has a beautiful singing voice. So yeah, I'm saying the KOC sketch, fantastic.
Fred Garvin, male prostitute. For me, it was purely Dan's performance. I mean, there's great writing and all that sort of stuff in there, but Dan's performance definitely put this over. So who was your star of the night, fellas?
My star of the night is Dan Aykroyd. I thought he was great as the male prostitute. I thought he was awesome in the Knights of Columbus sketch. He was a funny oaf as the Flash, and he was savage in Point Counterpoint, delivered like an acid burn killer night for Dan. And you know what? But I just want to say out loud because I don't have to say it. I really enjoyed Belushi tonight.
I would also agree. Dan Aykroyd was absolutely great tonight. He was on point. His characters were fantastic. He brought a lot of energy to a lot of the sketches. as always, just fantastic to watch and perform. Point counterpoint, just brutal to Jane. Oh my absolute! Like you could not do that nowadays on television in terms of like the visceral words coming out of his mouth. But yeah, 100% Dan Aykroyd.
The sheer brutality. Yeah, I also went with Dan. The only other one that was anywhere near the running, and actually was pretty damn close, was Belushi. You know, he was more consistent, and any energy that existed in most of these sketches were thanks to him. Fred Garvin, of course, which I've already gushed over, but also too just being the only thing that I really liked about the Franken and Davis sketch. So overall, I found this episode to be a complete slog. I thought the energy was completely non-existent. Truthfully, the best performances energy-wise and the most spirited performances were by the crew in the control booth at the top of the show. I don't think this was a strongly written show, and I don't think it was a strongly performed show, and the cast just, they seemed exhausted up there. So I was looking forward to this and was quite disappointed in almost everything. For me, I actually wound up giving this one a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty middle of the road episode. I wouldn't say it was like super disappointing. Well, it's outside of the superhero sketch. Like there were some great moments, some great characters, but yeah, there's so much more. I see a lot of sketches and characters that had a lot of promise and just didn't really earn up to that. Middling episode. I would give it a 4.
And Matthew?
I know how I feel, but I thought the cold open was the weakest part of the show, as I just mentioned, even though I thought the idea of the mayor showing up at St. Patrick's Day was funny. The monologue I thought was great. Funny Navy ad, great male prostitute sketch, wretched song, sketch of the night at the KOC, a stronger weekend update than in a while with great segments. You know, probably the disagreement of the night is I thought the superhero sketch was pretty funny. I thought they were really funny as just like regular characters dealing with regular people, and the Hulk was especially funny. And again, disagreement on Franken and Davis, which I thought was hilariously cruel, at least with Keith and I. Kevin and I liked it. And Men's Problems, I enjoyed too. And so we wrap up with the Chieftains, who blew me away with their second song, and Mr. Bill, that I always enjoy. I thought it can't be understated how wicked it is that a band that I have hated just pretty much all my life played something awesome that I was really into. And, it's important to be open to music. I thought Margot Kidder was excellent. She makes me want to go watch her movies, which but that's why she's there, right? Go watch my movies. After I saw her in this, I wanted to go watch her movies. I give this episode a 9 out of 10.
Holy crap. Wow. So with my 4, Kevin's 4, and Matt's 9, it gets a 5.7. The folks over at the IMDb give this one a 7.1, which is 1.2 away. So we're a little closer than we usually are with our exchange rate. This one is seen as the 12th best episode of the year. So, I mean, that's tracking with where I'm kind of at. Matt, you're a little high, and for all the third chairs together, Kevin, you're a little low. But, I mean, it averages out to be kind of where we're supposed to be on our ranking. What is interesting is Matt and I and the third chair. Rarely is Matt so much more positive on the show than we are. But I will say this, the cold open, even though you didn't like it, I'm sure it gets at least subliminal bonus points because the host wasn't in it.
Yeah, man, I thought about that because the host has been in it a lot lately, and I'm watching for it, and I'm just excited for the episode.
So, Kevin, thank you very much for joining us tonight for this wonderful St. Patrick's Day episode.
I enjoyed it highly.
Matt, do you know who our host and musical guest are next time?
No, please tell me.
The host is Richard Benjamin. He was an actor at this point, but he did go into directing. And I know he directed like The Money Pit, My Stepmother is an Alien, a lot of stuff that was like big when we were kids. And the musical guest is Ricky Lee Jones.
I don't know how I feel about Ricky Lee Jones. I don't really know a lot of Ricky Lee Jones, so it's not really fair to really say too much of anything. I'll go in with an open mind. I really don't have an opinion.
And, that's actually really good for this one, because I'm limited to my Richard Benjamin and know almost nothing about Ricky Lee Jones. Yeah, this will be a good one to sort of rate the show without having any bias towards the host and or musical guest.
It's hard when you hate the host.
Yeah, so Matt and I will be back in about a week. But until then, we'll be spending our St. Patrick's Days dealing with men's problems, such as bright orange urine, here in SNHell.